Blessings of the Heavenly Phoenix be upon you. Today, we are going to discuss something that's a little bit complicated, but remember, we're only covering the basics of magic today, here on Caddocks Castle, which I would point out again is my castle. I mean, I was named after me. I mean, I don't want to be pompous or anything like that. I'm so glad you've come back. Today we are covering magic, as I said before, and it can seem a bit overwhelming, but I pray you, please, just take a moment and a nice deep breath and know that we are only covering the basics, the very fundamentals of magic, which typically means how magic is received by you and not crafted by a caster such as myself. What is a caster? Well, a caster is one of the 4 classes within the realm of Amtgard. That would be Bard, Healer, Druid, and Wizard. Each of them having their own individual style and flair, and a bit of crossover within each other. For example, the Bard has some restorative magic, just as the Healer does. The Druid has some offensive magic, just like the Wizard. They each have different ways in which they interact with one another, but there's some basic things that unite them all. The first is, you need to be wearing proper attire. Like this. Haha! The second is that you need to have a sash, clearly declaring your class. Blue for Bard, red for Healer, brown for Druid, and yellow for Wizard. Green's for Scout. I don't know why I was going to say green, my word. And finally, every caster must have on their person a spell list. Casters have a large pool of abilities that they use points to select those abilities. You get 5 points per level. So at 6th level, you get 30 points. Now, not all abilities are all 1 for 1. Some of them actually cost more, like Armor for Bards. That costs 4 points at 2nd level. Kind of a pricey purchase. But each of those purchases must be listed in some sort of written form. For example, here it is. You probably can't read it from that far away, but this right here is my spell list that I keep on me at all times, just to make sure I can cast magic in case I need it. So all casters must have proper attire, sword and sorcery garb, I have heard some people say. You must also have a sash and a spell list. Without these, you cannot cast magic. When casting magic, you must keep your feet planted on the ground, both of them, mind you, and must not move. Moving means that you're going to have to go ahead and cast again. You should be able to be heard from at least 20 feet away, and it's probably just better to be heard from 50 feet away, clearly and distinctly. Diction and articulation are important when being a caster. With being a caster, there are different types of magic. So, for example, if I am going to be a caster and you, someone who is receiving a spell, there are different ways that I can transmit my magic to you. And this is what you really need to be worried about when we're covering the basics. The first type of magic, or I should say, I've already said it, the type of magic is going to be the spell ball. The spell ball is a soft padded ball that delivers some sort of effect. This one here is an ice ball because it is white, and it is 2.5 inches, spherical, and has a 1 to 6 inch tail. Good rule of thumb, if you see a spell ball coming at you, get out of its way, because there are very few things besides some protections that can keep you safe from a spell ball. And as you can see, from the lineup back here, there's a lot of them. That's a spell ball. You want to stay out of its way. The next is going to be enchantments. Enchantments come in 3 different types, if you will. There are the offensive enchantments, which give you more damage or allow you to better attack your foes, denoted by a red enchantment strip. the defensive enchantment, which is denoted by a white enchantment strip. This is extra armor or some sort of blessing to be conferred upon you. And finally, the yellow enchantment strip, which confers some sort of neutral or miscellaneous effect, mayhaps an extra bit of healing or some other sort of thing. And those are enchantment strips. These need to be attached to you or to your weapon and have an incant or saying that needs to go along with them as well. All of that is outlined within the rules of play. And if you're interested in enchantments and different things, go ahead and give those a look. Next is going to be verbals. This is what bards sort of specialize in. We are very verbal creatures, us bards. And that is simply by planting our feet and declaring a target. That's the first and most important part of a verbal, is that they have to get your attention somehow, either by stating your name or by two descriptors, i.e. they need to say something of your class and what you're wearing, or maybe a weapon you're carrying and the color of your hair, or something of that. Some sort of descriptor that gets your attention and says, oh, you're targeting me with a spell. And then all verbals, minus one or two, that's special to bards, can go on ahead and be repeated 3 times for clarity's sake. For example, if I were to look at a good friend of mine that I'm very, very, very fond of pranking or having fun with, Sorova, I would say, Sorova, death makes thee terrified, death makes thee terrified, death makes thee terrified. And if I could cast that off, they would have to avoid me for 30 seconds and be at least 50 feet away from me. Actually sounds like something I might do later on. Just stand in her doorway or her house and then declare it that she can't come up for 30 seconds. Although the problem would be, how would I get out of the house? Except if I opened a window and knew the path was clear, I'll have to get there sooner. Anyway, I'm not here to plan pranks, I'm here to teach you about magic. That's not the point. And then, after verbals, there is meta magic. Meta magic informs the way that other magic works. For example, that same spell I just showed you, which is Terror, by the way. It's the spell called Terror. Death makes thee terrified. And suddenly I can take all the visions of a more terrifying bard. But if I wanted to cast that while moving my feet, I could use a meta magic first, and that meta magic would be something like ambulant. So if I wanted to cast that again, I would do a descriptor, then I would cast my meta magic, and then the spell itself. So it would sound like this: Sorova, ambulant, death makes thee terrified, death makes thee terrified, death makes thee terrified. But instead of standing still, then I could move after I've said ambulant. So if I say their name and they begin to run away, which wouldn't necessarily be Sorova style, more if they ran towards me, I could say ambulant, back up, and still cast the spell as well. Final magic that is important to understand is neutral magic. Neutral magic typically only affects the caster, as this is mainly equipment such as armor or weapons, or it is some sort of special classification that allows the caster to do more. For example, if it's a bard, Dervish is a wonderful spell. It gives us double purchases on all of our verbal spells. So instead of having mayhaps 2 terrors, I could have 4. Haha. It's a wonderful little way to make yourself a little bit better on the battlefield. So that kind of covers all of the types of magic. Just a quick review. If you see a spell ball coming at you, best to avoid it altogether. If you see someone approaching you with an enchantment strip in a friendly way, best to ask them if they have an enchantment for you. If you see someone declare something about you or your name and begin to rattle off a certain charm, best to run towards them and get to them before they finish the spell, or to go ahead and run away from them outside of a specific realm of feet, probably 20 feet, so back it up quick, or charge towards them. And if you see somebody casting meta magic beforehand, well, then you really better be having a plan. And then a neutral magic you don't necessarily need to worry about unless you yourself are a caster. Now, there is so much more to the realm of magic, but that is the very basics that you, as someone who is coming to the realm of Amtgard, need to understand. The basics of what it means to become a caster. And if you ever have any more questions, please stop by my castle. I will go ahead and provide you with food and lodging, and I will answer all your questions as best I am able about magical abilities and casting and spells. And until such time as we do meet, I wish the blessings of the Heavenly Phoenix be upon you, and may life and love follow you all the days.